Hi, and thanks for tuning in for this session on embedded data integration in SAP Data Warehouse Cloud. My name is Jascha Kanngiesser. I'm part of the product management for data warehousing at SAP. So in this session, I'll be talking you through the different topics of data integration with Data Warehouse Cloud. I'll be giving you a very brief overview of Data Warehouse Cloud itself in case you haven't seen that before. And we'll be diving into the data flows as the main ETL data integration capability of Data Warehouse Cloud before I'll demonstrate the feature to you in a short demo in the system directly. Data Warehouse Cloud is a part of the Analytics Cloud and Cloud Data Services at SAP. And that ecosystem actually consists of three or later even four solutions, namely SAP HANA Cloud, our database as a service software managed solution. We have SAP Data Warehouse Cloud as well as SAP Analytics Cloud. And these services, because they are part of the same ecosystem, also share many services between each other. Data Warehouse Cloud is probably the best example of that because it makes use of the visualization and reporting capabilities of Analytics Cloud. It uses HANA Cloud as its underlying database persistency and also for its connectivity technologies and capabilities, and therefore provides you an integrated single package solution you can use for integrating your data, managing your data, building a harmonized data layer that you then use in your reporting, for example, Analytics Cloud or other third-party BI tools. As Data Warehouse Cloud is a data warehouse service at SAP, you might be wondering, in case you're familiar with BW or SQL native data warehousing, how that plays together. So Data Warehouse Cloud, that is very important to say, does not replace any of the already existing on-premises solutions, but it rather complements our portfolio that we have at SAP covering the public cloud domain. Of course, because we already have the since long established BW4 and SAP HANA 4 SQL data warehousing solutions for the any premises or on-premise installations, we are also working on a very natively or deeply integrated interaction between these solutions. But basically saying whatever strategy you have in your company, made a cloud first strategy, or whether you want to keep your BW installation as the main enterprise data warehouse solution, in any way, these solutions are supposed to be integrated in a harmonized and easy to use manner. That's mainly it for an introduction to Data Warehouse Cloud. In case you're interested in getting a more holistic overview, there's also other sessions I'll be pointing out after my session where you can get more information on Data Warehouse Cloud itself. But now let's take a closer look at the different data integration capabilities that we have in Data Warehouse Cloud for getting your data source connected and get you up to speed for working with the different data sources. Looking at the architecture of Data Warehouse Cloud, there's many different components that eventually build up the solution. As I already explained earlier, as part of the ecosystem Data Warehouse Cloud is placed in, you can see from that picture that it's not only the core components of Data Warehouse Cloud, like the governance services, data modeling services, or business modeling services, but there's also two other main components in this picture, namely the HANA Cloud component or technology that Data Warehouse Cloud uses for its storage, in-memory and disk storage, but also mainly for its connectivity capabilities. On the other hand, if you look on the consumption side, there's also then the integrated Analytics Cloud tenant that as a complete picture, give you that one simple package that you can use for integrating your data up to visualizing it and reporting on your data models. What's now missing here, and that is especially the new piece I'll be introducing to you during this session, is now the data flow capability, which is a subset of what you may know already as data intelligence, formerly Data Hub, that is about to be embedded in not only Data Warehouse Cloud, but basically the whole analytics cloud stack that we have at SAP. Now, if you take a look at Data Warehouse Cloud and how you can integrate data, or what the different data integration capabilities are that we offer for getting your data into Data Warehouse Cloud in different ways, you can basically differentiate between two main aspects or main ways how you can work with the data, namely pulling data into Data Warehouse Cloud in different fashions, like a federated or virtual access to the source you're connected to, or extracting the data from the source, but always starting from Data Warehouse Cloud. And the other way would be pushing the data actively from the outside into Data Warehouse Cloud by using an SQL interface that you can create within a space in Data Warehouse Cloud you use for modeling, and that you then connect to using any third-party SQL-speaking ETL tool you might already be using as part of your data movement strategy within your company. So what we are mainly concerned about today is the data extraction capability, or what we position as the ETL functionality in Data Warehouse Cloud, next to what we also offer in the area of full access to your data sources, besides the federated and cached data access. In Data Warehouse Cloud, there's different modeling entities or technologies, how you access these different ways of working with the data. So if you wanted to work with your data in a virtual or cached or replicated data access way, that is available to you via the remote tables and view modeling in Data Warehouse Cloud. If you wanted to build up your ETL processes, like we'll see it during this presentation, you would go with the data flow itself. In case you have already worked before with the data view builder, especially, you might be wondering, when would I use which of these tools? Because from a look and feel, they seem somewhat similar. They offer the same UI. You have slightly different operators available to model your data transformations and data movement processes in these two tools. But there's clearly a separation and clear guidance when to use which of these tools, which you can basically point out by these different, or by the 5 different dimensions as depicted on this slide. So starting with the main goal, if you only wanted to work with data federation, like the data should reside in the sources and you do not want to extract the data from these sources, that is a clear yes to the data view builder. Instead of, if you wanted to, or if you needed to build up your ETL processes, you need to persist the data for performance reasons, or because you need to apply rather heavy transformations to the data when loading them into Data Warehouse Cloud, you would use the data builder for that, because that, as you can see it in the transformations dimension, offers a different or even enhanced set of transformations you can apply, whereas the view builder is somewhat limited in the set of transformations you can use. It only offers SQL script, which might be useful for some use cases, but if you have rather heavyweight data transformation use cases and you needed to, for example, use Python script or the Python programming language, then the data flow is the right tool of choice. Also, if you take a look at which connections you can actually use in the data view builder or data flow builder, there's also differences in the number of connections. The data flow builder is by default supporting all the different connectivity types that you offer in Data Warehouse Cloud, and you can also use views that you have already built previously in your data view builder in Data Warehouse Cloud, whereas the data view builder itself only can work with those connections that actually do offer federation or real-time replication support to the sources you connected to. Looking at the output, what is different there? The data flow builder can define, or in the data flow builder, you can define multiple different output structures. The target is always persisted, whereas in the data view builder, the target by default is only federatedly available, can be optionally cached by choice, and there's only a single structured output available. As optional features, you have on the data view builder side the possibility to persist the view that you created in a snapshot scheduled fashion, whereas on the data flow builder side, you can also apply other harmonization enterprise grade mechanisms like data cleansing, error handling that you need to monitor and run your data flows to make sure that the data is available at the right time in the right format. Now the data flows itself, how do they look like in Data Warehouse Cloud, and what do they actually offer next to the view builder in Data Warehouse Cloud? The data flow, as part of the Data Intelligent Embedded Program, which I'll be talking about in a minute more deeply, is offering you various ways to work with different kinds of data, namely semi-structured data formats like JSON or XML files, as well as well-known structured data sources like relational databases that you connected to from Data Warehouse Cloud. You have different ways of working with the data, like there's different operators that you can apply when loading the data from the source before it's getting persisted in Data Warehouse Cloud. You can use SAP and non-SAP sources to load the data from. Additionally, for example, the data flow can connect to file storages. So you could use it, for instance, for scheduling a flat file upload, flat file CSV upload from a file storage server in your company network. There's different transformation capabilities available, as you, for example, know them from the view builder, like applying a union or join operator. And in addition, there's also the already mentioned scripting operator already available. At the next time, or at the same time, we're also working on enhancing the available operators, for example, by working on somewhat or some kind of intelligent lookup transformation operator, making that available to you in the data flow. I already mentioned it, the data flow feature is nothing that we have completely newly invented in Data Warehouse Cloud, but it's rather a subset of services that Data Intelligent offers for the other solutions within the ecosystem of analytics, cloud, and data ecosystem. The idea behind this one is that, like I mentioned it earlier already, that because all these different applications or solutions like Analytics Cloud, HANA Cloud, Data Warehouse Cloud, and also Intelligence Cloud are part of the same ecosystem, they also should share certain services amongst each other. One great example is the user management or role management, because you do not want to have different user management in all these solutions in case you're using multiple of these. And same goes for the data preparation and data ingestion services. Because we know that data intelligence already has a long history of preparing data, ingesting data, transforming data between different sources. We do not want to reinvent the wheel right here, but we want to leverage what we already have worked on a long time to make use of the best services that we have. Also, this allows us to build Data Warehouse Cloud on a stable foundation that can scale already to large data volumes, that is able to deal with high data loads, and can provide a, because we UI-wise embedded it in the Data Warehouse Cloud look and feel and UI flow, a very focused user experience. In case you already worked with Data Intelligence Cloud or Data Intelligence, you now might be wondering, okay, so if this, or is there still the need to use data intelligence because now I have the data flows in Data Warehouse Cloud? Or do I really need to use the data flows in case there's already data intelligence I'm using anyways? The clear answer is that there is actually no clear answer, but it heavily depends on the use case that you are following. There's still good reasons to use either of these solutions. And in case you're looking at Data Warehouse Cloud and how you want to get data into Data Warehouse Cloud in an ETL fashion, the clear answer is the data flows is there to help you. Because the data flows, that is the tool which you use to apply different data transformation and harmonization activities on the data you need to load into Data Warehouse Cloud. Whereas if you have the need, for example, for machine learning use cases, artificial intelligence use cases, which is not part of the data flows, because even though they are a subset or a subset of services of data intelligence, they really only focus on the EDL part of things. The data flows do not offer functionality for applying or embedding machine learning algorithm, for example, for writing data from Data Warehouse Cloud into other data targets outside of Data Warehouse Cloud. So this is all left to Data Intelligence Cloud still. So if you, in addition to your ETL use cases where you need to bring data into Data Warehouse Cloud, have the need to work on ML use cases, have the need for rather or even more heavyweight data transformation processes, then Data Intelligence Cloud is still the right tool of choice to use for these activities. Of course, that doesn't mean that you cannot use both in parallel. So there's also many use cases that we have already seen where customers use these two together, like for bringing data into Data Warehouse Cloud, using the data flows, then applying some machine learning algorithms, or for example, a text sentiment analysis on top of the data that has been loaded into Data Warehouse Cloud, and using the writing algorithms or architecture of Data Intelligence Cloud to write the result back into Data Warehouse Cloud to then run your reporting or visualization dashboards on top of that data. If you take a look at how an end-to-end process looks like in Data Warehouse Cloud, that you'll also see in more detail in a minute in the demo I'll be showing to you, you can see that the whole process of creating a data flow, executing a data flow, monitoring a data flow, and modeling a data flow is, even though it's a subset, again, of data intelligence services, is completely integrated into the look and feel of the Data Warehouse Cloud experience. We have the very common and already known steps, like creating a connection within your space in your Data Warehouse Cloud tenant, which is not specific to creating a data flow, but you also need to build your view models, for example, in the view builder. We, on the other hand, if you look at the right side of this slide, we again have the story designer and data modeling, which is also nothing solely available in the context of data flows. But in the middle, we have exactly the piece of building data flows, executing and scheduling data flows, which is then completely integrated into the look and feel of Data Warehouse Cloud, where if you start to create or if you start to build a new data flow, then make use of the sources or connections you have newly created because you now need to use them in data flows, or where you can also use the connections that you had already created before, or the data models that you already had created before, to then turn them into another data target that you need in your reporting or in your visualizations in Analytics Cloud. Also, because we have the scheduling possibility available for example, for the remote table replication, as well for the view materialization, you can also, in the data integration monitor in Data Warehouse Cloud, schedule data flows that you created. In addition to the transformation capabilities that you may already know from the view builder, like all the standard transformations, for instance, projection or join nodes, union and filter nodes, you have additional, well, not only standard transformations, but only scripting capabilities in Data Warehouse Cloud. Currently, what you can use is the Python programming language with the NumPy and Pandas module for working with the data that you read from your connected sources. And we're also working on more and more standard or custom transformation capabilities, which will probably only be available in the data flow modeler. For example, things like a case operator, lookup, cleansing rules, or JSON or Excel and XML operator that you can work also with these semi-structured data sources. I want to give you a brief overview of what the use case or the scenario actually looks like that we'll be working with. The use case I'll be showing to you is made up of a simple data set, which is about sales data of specific products. As you can see it in the left lower corner, whereas this data is coming from an HANA Cloud or S4 HANA Cloud source. In addition, we have some product marketing review data that are stored in a Google Cloud Storage bucket. And in this scenario, I now want to use this review data from the last 3 years, 2017, 2018, and 2019, to get some idea about how well my products are perceived by my customers. What we'll do in this demo is that we are creating a connection to the Google Cloud Storage, and we'll load the data, which is stored in CSV files, into our Data Warehouse Cloud tenant. We'll apply some transformation capabilities on the text to then extract all the review information that our customers provided and match that with the products that we have sold over the last years. This will then give us an idea how well the different products are perceived by our customers, where we need to improve, for example, our support, where we need to improve some of our products or what is already going the right way. And we can just benefit from the efforts that we made earlier. All right, having said that, let's jump into the system and showing you the use case.
All right, let's look like how this scenario looks in one of our Data Warehouse Cloud tenants, which is the data flow feature enabled. In this tenant, I've already created a space that contains a connection to my on-premise S4 HANA system. From my S4 HANA system, via this connection, I can retrieve the sales order headers and sales order items, whereas the sales order items contain some information about the products my customers bought. In the data builder, I'm now going ahead and creating a view that combines both the sales order header items and the sales order items from the on-premise S4 HANA system. I'm browsing the connection that I created in my space earlier. I'm joining the two tables, which gives me the desired output, basically the information about the sales orders, the items that have been sold per sales order, which are the products, how many products I sold, the net amount, gross amount, tax amount for each of these, as well as when the order is to be delivered. I'm now going ahead and saving the view. I'm declaring this as an analytical dataset because the dataset contains some measures that I would like to visualize. And I'm dragging all the needed measures from the attributes to the measures section. Additionally, because these are now amount measures as well as a quantity, I need to define a currency which wasn't part of my original data model right here. So I'm going ahead and simply creating a calculated column called currency and assign it the value USD, since all my numbers are in USD currency. Next, I'm defining the currency column I just defined as the semantic type currency or currency code. And then I'm going ahead and assign the currency column to my amount measures. I'm saving and deploying the view. And as a next step, then start taking a look at my product reviews. My product reviews are stored in a bucket on Google Cloud Storage. There's the order product reviews 01, in which you can find 3 CSV files containing the product reviews for the years 2017, 2018, and 2019. If you take a look at one of these, they all have the very same structure. By downloading one of the files, you can see that it contains some review ID, product ID, custom ID, some other information, as well as a review title and a review text. Now, what I want to do is that I want to join this data with the sales data I retrieved from my S4 HANA system. But before doing so, I need to connect to my Google Cloud Storage. And as you can see, there's some review text that still contain the review column as a prefix in the review text column. So I need to do two things. First, I need to connect to the Google Cloud Storage to consume the data. Secondly, I need to work on some of the review text and remove the review column in front of the actual text that customers entered for review. In Data Warehouse Cloud, I'm going back to my space management. Within my space, I'm now going ahead and create a new connection to Google Cloud Storage. Again, I need to provide a business name, product reviews, as well as a technical name, GCS product reviews. I hit next and then define the project. I leave the root path empty and I select the key file I need to authenticate again through Cloud Storage. After creating the connection, I check it I make sure it's valid by selecting it and hit the validity check button, and I can see that it's enabled for data flow building, and therefore I can now go ahead again to the data builder. Before creating the data flow to load the data from Google Cloud Storage, I need to make sure that I create the local target tables in Data Warehouse Cloud first. This is needed because the tenant I'm currently using is still running on version 2020-20. Maybe when you're looking at this demonstration, your tenant might already be on a newer version, so creating the target tables upfront might not be necessary anymore. In this case, I have to do this before I create my data flow. So now I'm going ahead and create 3 tables, one containing the product review data from 2017, 2018, and 2019, respectively, and a 4th table that contains the combined data as well as the harmonized data from the product review text column. Because I have the products table definition for Data Warehouse Cloud already at hand as a CSN file, I can use the ER modeler to import this definition from my local machine. I'm going ahead and importing the definition for all 3 tables. After I've imported the definition into the ER model, I can go ahead and deploy the ER model in my Data Warehouse Cloud space. By deploying the ER model, all the entities that are part of the model are deployed as well. This means that 4 tables will be created, a product review table for 2017, 2018, and 2019, and as well as one table that I'll be using to collect the data from all 3 years into one single table. Now I can go ahead and create my first data flow that will load the data for 2017. From the connections, I select the product execute connection to my Google Cloud Storage. I drill down into my bucket and select the product reviews for 2017. Next, from the repository step, I'll be using the product reviews 2017 table that I just created. I'll define it as a target, and then I simply direct the connection from my Google Cloud Storage source dataset to my data target in Data Warehouse Cloud. I'll save this data flow as load reviews for 2017, save it, and then schedule my data flow for importing the data. After I've scheduled my data flow, the status switches to running, and I can navigate to the data integration monitor to get an idea about the status of my data flow. Switching from the remote table monitor to the data flow monitor, I can then see all the data flows that have been executed at least once and the status for these. I can see that the status is completed for the data flow I just created, and I can also take a look at the details of this run. There's no additional messages because the run finished without any errors, and therefore I can go back to the data flow builder. I'm now creating 2 more data flows for loading the data for the years 2018 as well as 2019. Again, that is still an issue with the tenant version I'm using, so in case you are following the same scenario, you might already go ahead and create the final data flow where you combine the data from the 3 CSV files from your Google Cloud Storage in one single data flow. Now I loaded the data for all 3 years, 2017, 2018, and 2019. Checking the data flow monitor, I can see that the first 2 data flows have completed already successfully. The third one is still running, so let me refresh this page until it finished, and we can see it also completed successfully. Now I'm going ahead and build my 4th data flow in order to combine the data from the 3 tables that I just loaded and to remove the review column prefix from the review text. Therefore, I'm dragging the 3 tables that I've filled with the previous data flows I created onto the canvas for my 4th data flow and declare them as source entities. Also, I want to combine the data, so I'm using a union node to combine the first 2 and a second union node to combine the outcome of the first union with the data from the 3rd table. Next, I'm adding a script node because I want to use some Python script in order to remove the review column text from the review text column. Therefore, in the Python node, on the script section or in the script section, I'm changing the script that is executed when I schedule the data flow as follows. I want to change the output data and assign it a new value. Basically, this new value is taken from the previous value. In the review text column, I'm looking for all the text that start with the review column text, and I want to replace again in the review text column the values I found with an empty space. Again, I say that this is a regular expression, and I'm finished with my script. Finally, I need to add the target table into which I want to persist the result of this data flow, which is my final product review table. I add this to the data flow as well. Now in this case, I'm changing the mode from append to truncate because every time this data flow is executed, I want the review tables to be truncated to only have the most current result. And I'm saving again this data flow and execute it later on. Again, I'm switching to the data integration monitor and check for the status of this data flow until it completes. After the data flow finished successfully, I can go back to my data builder and now enhance my product sales analytical dataset. Within the dataset, where I already combined the sales order header and sales order item information containing the product information that my customers bought, I'm adding the product review information. I'm joining the product reviews with the sales order items to get a holistic overview about how pleased my customers are with the products that I sold to them. Now, for all the items I sold, I can directly see the reviews and the review text. I can now again go ahead and save and deploy this model to then further use it, for example, in the integrated analytics cloud tenant in my story builder, or expose it for consumption in third-party applications outside of my Data Warehouse Cloud tenant via the SQL interface.
Finishing the demo, I hope you could get a very good idea from what the difference is when using the data flow compared to the already available view builder feature, and when to use the 2 tools and how to combine them. If you are interested in even more detailed experiences with how you can use Data Warehouse Cloud for integrating your different data sources and bringing it all together on a new level, there's other interesting sessions you might want to take a look at. There's 2 workshops I'll be presenting myself, which are the ANA 365 and the ANA 368, which are dealing with the scenario we have just seen in more detail, as well as how you can integrate your BW4 on-premises application with Data Warehouse Cloud, focusing on what has been mentioned in the beginning as the hybrid use case, how you can bring together your on-premise installation with the new Data Warehouse Cloud public cloud solution. We also have some public websites available for you where you can get more information about Data Warehouse Cloud in general. There's also already bigger growing community available to you where you can exchange experiences and ask questions. I'll be in there myself answering the questions you're raising. And of course, there's the well-known SAP community and SAP products pages where you can get even more information about other solutions like Analytics Cloud or HANA Cloud, in case you're interested in these as well. Before ending my session officially, I would just like to point you to the other learning experiences that we have for SAP TechEd 2020. So you might want to take a look at the different pages that we have. You might want to definitely activate your free access to our Learning Hub to get more information on the events and then different editions, learning journeys, and the content that we have specifically created for SAP TechEd. And you can also make use of our solution skills and get yourself some certificates to prove that you really got to know the products that we presented to you by following our global certification program. Having said that, I really want to thank you for attending this session, and I hope you could take away lots of new interesting stuff. In case there's any further topics, any questions that come to your mind after the session, don't hesitate to reach out. You'll find my email address right here on the screen. Just send me an email and I'll be happy to get in touch with you for whatever concerns you might have. So thanks a lot and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
you